Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for a live reaction and player ratings live stream following Chelsea 0, Manchester City 1. Well, I would be lying if I didn't expect us to lose this game. If I'm being, the realistic part of me did expect us to lose this game. For this realistic part of my mind, this wasn't actually that bad, in the grand scheme of things. We defended overall pretty well. We had a couple of chances, could have scored, hit the post and that. But then obviously in the second half, it was just very, very evident that we're just not quite good enough when City are at least half decent. It's just a bit of a shame. But, I mean, has any club... I mean, there probably has. But I can't remember a time at Chelsea when we've ever had this many injuries. We have now 10 injuries. Now, of course, a few of those are reasonably close to returning. Loftus-Cheek, Mendy, Chilwell as well, reasonably soon. But still, we have 10 injuries at the club right now. I don't care who you are, whether you're Arsenal or City or Liverpool or Real Madrid or PSG, whoever you are. If you have 10 injuries in your squad, and a lot of these guys are usually regular, people that get regular game time, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle no matter who you are, right? And I think in comparison to that, I don't think it was that bad. But am I going to sit here as a Chelsea fan and gas us up for losing 1-0 to City? Absolutely not. We will talk about everything in detail. We did try to have Aaron on. I still don't really understand what the issue is with StreamYard on his phone. It doesn't work on Chrome. Apparently, it just doesn't work on Chrome on your iPhone. And on Safari, it doesn't work either. So it doesn't have a PC available at the moment. So a whole nightmare. I don't understand how this happens. Aaron, I'm not sure if you're watching. Maybe we'll try a tester stream so we can figure this out in the week or whatever, because this is a bit strange. I find this a bit weird. But we are, regardless of that, joined by two absolutely wonderful guests. Joined all the way from Denmark, which sounds less crazy because I'm also all the way in Austria. So, but all the way from Denmark. Bertram, you said yesterday in your wonderful quiz, I really enjoyed it yesterday. And not that I don't always enjoy it, but yesterday I thought was particularly enjoyable. You put it in there that you just don't like pessimism and that you just don't like going into games expecting to win or just, fearing the worst. I'm not sure if you actually went into the game expecting us to win or if it was more of a hopeful part of you. But what did you make of the game? Just to summarize it quickly.
Well, the logical part of my mind throughout the week has said, we will drop points here. But, as the day goes on, the match day goes on, you hear the liquidator for the first time. You can't help but gas yourself up. But to be honest, I thought it was a bit depressing to see the difference in the two teams. And I can't help but feel we've been here before as well, with Lampard, especially, parts of the second season, but especially in the first where we were in transition, points under Sarri as well. I think we've seen, a large golfing class between us and teams like City, who have spent the money, have a quality coach as well. But realistically, I thought we did probably the most we could do. I was really encouraged by some of the performances today. And I was worried, that we'd go out there and be absolutely smashed. But I think we showed some fight. I think some players showed up. I was really impressed by our midfielders today. And you touched upon it earlier as well, that, the point of our injuries, it's just getting a joke. It's similar with Liverpool after they became champions, where they just lost everyone. But I think it's a time now for us as a club, maybe some place we haven't been before, realistically, because I still think in 15-16 we had, the root of a title-winning squad. But the place we are now is a place of, rebuilding. We have players we need to get out, we will touch upon him later, but a player like Aubameyang, for example, someone who's clearly not good enough, and players we need to coach in. We have extremely old players and extremely young players coming in today. So I think it's important we as fans, temper our expectations, because this isn't Chelsea. This isn't the Chelsea of the past Roman Abramovich era. This won't be the Chelsea of Todd Bowley's era as well. So I think we just need to temper expectations and accept that we aren't as good as we want to be, because we will get back to that level. I firmly believe it. And when we do, we'll think back to sitting here at, in European time. It's half past 11. We'll sit here and think about how we've just been, partly dominated by City and think, I was there. But now that we've won the Premier League or the Champions League, it was worth it. So those are my initial therapeutic thoughts on the game.
Yeah, no, I echo most of it, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. I mean, it's tough. And but what also makes it tough is that we actually defended well as a whole. Obviously Haaland had that one big chance to make it 2-0 not long after the 1-0. But in general, we kept them out very well. I thought we set up very well in terms of stopping Haaland and not stopping Haaland, stopping Man City, sorry. And we also stopped Haaland. How many do that? So I guess it's something positive. But obviously, if you still lose, then, it doesn't get you anything, that does it? But, at least Haaland didn't get even more goals than we have this season. So, maybe that's a positive from that perspective. But it's also frustrating because I just think that the goal was seriously avoidable. Obviously, Aspie can do better in the whole situation with Grealish. But I just don't understand what Kepa was doing. He was so close to the ball. I understand that maybe he was worried about, parrying it straight into the middle of the box. But there was not that much pace on the ball. It felt like he could have just jumped on it and hold on to it. I feel like the cross that he held on to earlier in the first half was way more difficult, had way more pace on it, was way further away from him. I don't really, it's just it's definitely a mistake from the goalie. Is it the worst mistake from the goalie? I don't think so. It's more just a split second of indecisiveness, which just looks awful in the end. Obviously, Cucurella, could he have kept up with Mahrez? In an ideal world, yes. Is that always possible? Maybe not. Clutch, thank you for joining us. What's your perspective? Obviously, there's people in the chat like Dane Murphy, or there's, a lot of people in the chat that are critical and say the manager's awful and everything's awful. And hey, on the basis of what we found out today and yesterday and the whole Enzo Fernandez thing, hey, man, even the flipping ownership is awful. But Dane Murphy says it there. It's 1 win in 7. It is. It's not good. It's really, 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 really not good. But like I say, how many teams with 10 injuries to you, most of them regular players, regular game time players, would do that much better than that? Do you know what I mean? What did someone just say? It's an easy catch for Mendy. Well, that's revisionism, but sure. Clutch, what's your perspective on the game? What's your perspective on the goal?
Hello, welcome. I'm here. I just got home, actually, though, so it's a little bit catching up. But, I think as I'm catching up with my brain, I think people in the chat, I'm asking, this honest question. So today, what did Potter do wrong? I thought we set up very well in the first half. I thought City were shit, a lot of it, but we also set up very well. It wasn't like they were just running through us, and what happened was Pep had to go to a different system to actually get a goal against us. That's what halftime did. He did it. And again, Laurenz has already said it. We have 10 injuries with 7 of them who might start or get game time regularly. So what do you want somebody to do? Today, you can criticize him rightly for most part, for most games. Today, I don't think it's one of them. I think people are just really just utterly frustrated right now, and I think it's an understandable thing. But today is just what more do you want? We actually did well against City. This is Pius yesterday was saying he wanted to see the fight. We fought. I don't know what more you want. We fought. City held. We're 1-0
in the press conference or interview today. We gave her everything. At least he will actually not be lying.
Yeah, and it's I don't know why. In my head, I'm so you call the player shit, but then you want Potter to all of a sudden somehow beat City, and then you're going to get mad at him for not beating City?
Everyone is saying the players are awful. That's what everyone is saying at the moment, but still, apparently the manager is doing something wrong.
Make things make sense in my mind. I mean, I don't think all the players are that bad. Yeah. I do think we just got really unlucky. I just think we got really unlucky today. And yes, Kepa made a mistake. That was a very bad mistake. But other than that, Kepa's been brilliant. The mistakes happen. You have to be understanding of everybody in this fan base is just so overreactive. I walk home, I turn on my computer, I open up YouTube, and I'm just the comments are all this, everybody's so bad. It's make it make sense. Stop overreacting. Take a second, take a deep breath. It's okay. No, we're not in the best of form. But if you ever thought we were coming in to beat City today, realistically, we did better than we should have. And you should be okay with that. No, it's not okay that we lose, but it's, again, in this situation,
you need to just be realistic in life. There's no point going into every game thinking, oh, we are Chelsea, so we have to win every game. When you have 8 injuries before the game, 10 injuries by the time we hit minute 20, and playing, one of at least the best teams in the world.
And Dane said, yeah, we're 10. Did you expect that to change against City? who arguably is one of the best teams in the country, if not the best team in the country.
It's a problem, obviously, right? Because if you look at today's game in isolation, I think you and me, all of us, have made fair points. But obviously, when you look at the bigger picture, and it's 1 win in 7, we're 10th in the league, there's clearly some issues going on. There's clearly issues going on. But unfortunately, not issues that are fixed by sacking the manager or fixed by signing one player, in my opinion. Obviously, everyone will have different opinions on that, but I
think if anything, it shows that today we do have it in us to play good. We do have it, but we need to figure out how do we get that out of people on long term. And then another thing is like, we need to, if you're going to spend 80 million on Enzo, just spend 80 million on the medical staff. That's what we really need to do. Because why do we have so many injuries? Why do people get, a couple of them are injuries that you really can't avoid because they're contact injuries, but still, that's how I see it. It's just, I thought we did decently well for what we had up against us.
Yeah, so did I in the grand scheme of things, but I also don't want to make it sound much better than it was. I did have one comment in mind here, which I wanted to highlight and talk about, but now it escaped my mind and I can't find it anymore. So let's just move on to actually talking about the team, because there was a few differences in the team today. Now, one of which was forced because Mason Mount picked up an injury in training yesterday. We don't know the extent of that injury. When Graham Potter was asked about it, kind of didn't go into detail of the extent of the injury, just spoke about, well, yeah, it's unfortunate that we lost Mount, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, Mount was not available. So a few hours or a little while before the game, rather, we found out that he wouldn't start at the time, not knowing that it was because of injury. And we also found out that Jorginho wasn't starting, which was kind of the main difference here. Essentially, it was Jorginho replaced by Ziyech in a way. Like, not directly. Obviously, Jorginho was replaced by Kovacic in a way and then Mount by Ziyech, but we played it differently. Now, obviously, as you can see, I already put 2 subs on the screen because what we started with was, well, very strange. Honestly, I wasn't even sure. I even felt like at the beginning, Sterling was up front and not even the 10, and Havertz was already the 10 at the beginning. But I wasn't 100% sold on it. But obviously, Sterling got injured after 2 minutes, so we didn't really get a chance to properly see that. So Sterling was then replaced by Aubameyang, and then Aubameyang was the striker. Havertz was the number 10 when we were off the ball. It was initially a 4-2-4 with Chukwuemeka on the, well, later than Chukwuemeka on the left when he came on for Pulisic, Ziyech on the right, and then a front 2. And then once we got deeper in our own half, we shifted to a midfield 3 when Ziyech dropped deep. And yeah, we played it as a midfield 3 like that, But like I say, 2 minutes in, Sterling picks up a hamstring injury. I will be honest. In the end, once Chukwuemeka was basically on the wing instead of Sterling, we arguably looked better than we did in ages, if I'm honest. But obviously also Pulisic picked up an injury from like the most typically Chelsea unfortunate of situations. We actually create an attack, a nicely played attack. Pulisic is there with the chance. Would he have scored it because he went for the near post? I'm not 100% sure, but it was a big chance anyway. And John Stones pulls off an absolute wonder tackle, if we're being perfectly honest. It's a great tackle. He manages to get on the ball just as Pulisic tries to shoot the ball. As balls are filled with air, he hits the ball, his leg kind of bounces off awkwardly. I'm not sure if it's the ankle or the knee that was, in the end, injured. But he had to come off. And then, like I say, Chukwuemeka came on and, hey, at least he took his chance. But boys, I'll start with you, Bertram. What did you make of the team? And let's also just, like, when we saw that come out, and then what did you make of, I guess the team that we had after the injuries, reset everything? Oh, yeah. Now remember what I wanted to talk about. Someone in the chat said that we, like, after Pep made so many early subs, that we should have made some more early subs. I just want to remind everybody, you only get 3 substitution phases in a game. And we already used up 2 of those with Sterling and Pulisic. So going into the second half, I'm still not 1,000,000% convinced on this whole rule, whether the halftime counts as one of the substitution phases or not, because the point of these phases is not to time waste. But if you make a sub at halftime, it's not going to time waste because the time hasn't even started yet. So I'm not 1,000,000% sure. Maybe we could have done it halftime, but we already made 2 in the first half, and it wasn't that bad in the first half. So you didn't really require a first half change, a halftime change, in my opinion. But then you can't just change in the 55th minute or whatever when you only have 1 phase substitution left. Because if you have an injury later on, you're literally playing with 10 men or 9 men or however many injuries you get. And with the luck we've had, you can't exactly, guarantee that that's not going to happen. So, like, I criticize Potter a lot and I criticize his late subs a lot. But today you can't criticize that because we only had one substitution phase left in the second half. But Bertram, sorry, to go back to the question, what did you make of the team? What did you make of, once we had the forced changes on the pitch?
Well, yeah, looking at the team, we are pretty bare bones right now, if we're honest. So he couldn't really have picked anyone else of senior players. I thought it was good. I like the choice of going with the 4-2-3-1. I'm happy that he didn't go with the 5 back in the end. I like that he tried to go for it, and I like the team, kind of responded to that, especially during the first half. I was happy that Aubameyang didn't start, if I'm honest, because I don't think he's warranted it. And I like the inclusion of Ziyech as well. I might be a bit torn on how he played, but I think he gives us something as well. But a nice team from Potter in general. Yeah, those are my initial thoughts, if I'm honest. Not too much other than the fact that I don't think he had anyone else to choose from. I've seen some people criticize that he brought Alba on, but in his defense, I don't see who else you should have brought on in that situation. If we look, we would ideally have seen someone like maybe Hutchinson, but he didn't exactly impress when coming on, as he shouldn't have, because he's, young and it is his debut and he's playing against arguably the best team in the world. So we weren't exactly out of choices on that. So I thought it was all right, I guess, to be honest.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad. Like, I didn't have that much to complain about. Now, obviously, I wasn't particularly pleased about seeing Aspie start again. I would have preferred to just go with Chalobah, but one thing we do have to mention is, and I spoke about it in the last game, which I didn't understand, is that how we build in a 3. Now, not that happened that often today because of how the game was, but in general, how we build in a 3, usually it's the right back pushes, and then we build a little bit like this. Today, and in the last game, I was like, why would we do that with Aspie? Like, he does not have the pace to do that anymore. Like, he just doesn't. Why don't we do it with Cucurella on the other side? And at least we did that today. We let Cucurella attack a little bit more, and Aspie sat a bit deeper, and Aspie certainly didn't get exposed anywhere near enough. Anywhere near as much as he did against Forest. Now, obviously, he still got beat on the goal, but, I mean, is Azpilicueta, are you expecting him to never get beat? Then you live in a dream world. Or I would like to have some of whatever you're smoking, because you can't, you can't expect Aspie anymore to never get beat in a 1v1. And it wasn't even a direct 1v1. They kind of played it through us. I guess he could have been a bit wider, but then someone fills the gap and then it's directly in front of goal. So Aspie was helped today for sure, just by not being exposed constantly. And it certainly helped him. It helped Koulibaly. Both of them, who had an absolute stinker in the last game, were a little bit better. Aspie still not great. I thought Koulibaly actually had a pretty decent game, if I'm honest. But Clutch, your thoughts on the team initially, and then on the subs that came? Obviously, when you saw that Ziyech started, you were kind of sure in your head that Pulisic would be the one that would be left out. But, well, it wasn't. Ziyech kind of played instead of Mount. So what did you make of the whole thing, especially, I guess, after, the sub players came on in the first half?
I mean, in my head, Ziyech kind of deserved to start because, I mean, Sterling's been terrible. I kind of figured that Sterling, we're not going to pile on the guy because he just got injured. So I'm not going to pile on, but I just kind of figured like he didn't have a reason to start, So I figured, I was happy with Ziyech, but then I seen the whole lineup. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess. But as the time got on, the surprising thing was it wasn't Aspie starting. It was that Jorginho wasn't starting. I mean, for the first time, I guess you kind of understand it being City's one of their strongest things is their midfield. So you kind of want a Kovacic to be in there to go against KDB. But other than that, I didn't really have a problem with it. I mean, I think it's kind of unfortunate the way the game went, but other than that, I didn't really have that big of a problem. I mean, Aspie, I don't see him taking Chalobah out until Badiashile comes in and is actually on the bench, and then I can see Aspie not playing as much. But
potentially, that is certainly a way it could happen. Badiashile, obviously officially announced by Chelsea as a new signing for what is it, 38 million euros on a 7.5-year deal until June of 2030, which is insane to think about, the year 2030. Like, bloody hell. Makes me feel right old. But let's get into the game. Let's talk about the game, because at the very beginning, I swear we didn't touch the ball for the first 15 minutes. That's what it felt like anyway. Obviously, aside from when Pulisic had the chance. But otherwise, it felt like we didn't touch the ball. Obviously, Stanley got injured after 2 minutes anyway. Game was interrupted. Not quite sure there was only 2 minutes of added time at halftime, if there was literally 2 minutes at 2 injury stoppages, but sure. And then obviously Pulisic gets the injury. And then after that, we actually found our way into the game a little bit. Like, we managed to keep the ball. We managed to create a few situations. Like, still City dominated possession in the grand scheme of things. But every now and again, we managed to intercept the ball nicely. Every now and again, we also managed to beat City's press nicely and create a few moments for ourselves. There was one where Havertz could have squared it to Aubameyang. I think if he trusted his weak foot more, he cut it back to Chukwuemeka and he nearly, got there for a very good shooting opportunity, but one of the City defenders got there to block it. Obviously, the Pulisic chance that I mentioned later on in the first half, Chukwuemeka hit the post after a nice run. But we had a couple of moments, honestly, It wasn't amazing, but it wasn't the worst, especially like from this period of, I would say, 15 to... Well, really from 15 minutes to the end of the first half, for the most part of that, I was pretty happy with that, if I'm honest. Very interesting that a lot of people in the chat seem very unhappy with Cucurella today. I thought, maybe he could have somehow managed to stick with Mahrez at the far post. But, oh my God, it's not always as easy as it sounds. And I thought in the grand scheme of things, he was absolutely brilliant. I don't, honestly, if you thought he was, fair enough, if you thought he was average, fair. But if you thought he was bad today, I cannot understand how we watched the same game. That is mind-boggling to me. But sure.
Who do people think was bad?
Cucurella.
Oh, that's just because I hate him. You're right now. You're going to see people's agendas coming out.
No, of course, obviously. Well, it's not. But do they hate him? It's just I think people associate him with this the part of the club turning average. Getting all these Brighton players. New ownership. I think that's what they associate with. But I don't know. Going forward, Cucurella was average, yeah, but. We played against Man City today. I don't think our fullbacks were supposed to be as involved in attack today.
It was his
pass.
We
aren't too exposed defensively. Now, he was involved every now and again, sure, and he had that one cross, which I still think was deflected, if I'm honest, but he didn't complain about it, so maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, that was a bad cross. But, he also played that very nice, cutback ball to Havertz that led to Pulisic chance, in which he got injured. That was a very nice play from Cucurella. I thought it was decent. And people say, he passed the ball to City 3 times in the first 10 minutes or whenever it happens. But that's why Cucurella is the only player that helps us beat the press. Because Silva, Zakaria, Koulibaly, they all just pass it sideways, the easy one. And then they force Cucurella into the corner, surrounded by 3 City players, and he either has to punt it or find a way out. And he's actually the guy that risks it, and more often than not, found a way out. And he was the only guy, him and Kovacic were the 2 that helped us beat the press. Nobody else did. So, if you don't see that sometimes you need to play a slightly risky ball in that situation to beat a press and then actually give yourself space. Again, I can't understand how you watch football, if I'm being perfectly honest. But let's just start with the goalkeeper. And especially on today's situation with the goal, it's a tough one because I still think in general he did well. He caught some crosses well. He commanded things pretty well. He made a couple of nothing special saves, but, made a couple of saves. But I still think he should be doing better on the goal. Bertram, you're a goalkeeper, if I'm not mistaken. What did you make of that? Do you think he should have just come for it? Is it your assumption as well that he was scared to parry it in the middle and for easy Haaland tap in? Or why do you think he pulled out? Because he was so close to the ball already. It wasn't far from him whatsoever. So I just don't understand.
I think it looked really weird, if I'm honest, because he was, like you said, that close. I think sometimes in that situation, it can come quite quick. But, we looked at the one he made in the first half. It was almost arguably more difficult coming out to catch that one. So I don't know what went through his head. It's almost as if, Mahrez shouted, "Leave it." And then he was like, fair enough. Because he does come out for it, but then decides not to go for it in the end. I do think it's a mistake from his part. And I think he will be annoyed with it, as most goalkeepers are when they concede, if it's their fault or not. But yeah, like you said, I thought he did command well. I think his coming out for crosses has been better. I thought he looked solid. But this is one of those things that does deter me from seeing him as our number 1 goalkeeper. Stepping up in those situations where we've played well against a tough team. We're put under the cosh, and then he does something like that, even though it isn't a direct mistake where it goes through his legs or something. I thought, like you said, otherwise solid, but for me, he should be doing better in that situation, and that will be reflected on his rating. So, are you asking for a rating now, or just
yes.
general discussion? I would probably give him a 4. I think I think he wasn't catastrophic, but making the mistake for the only goal in the game will naturally pull him down.
Yeah. Okay. Clutch. What would be your rating in comparison to Bertram's?
What did Bertram give him?
Bertram?
I gave him 4.
I'm going to give him a 5. Other than the mistake, I thought he was average, and it was a pretty big mistake. And the only way I would justify that is if somebody called him off that. But as the keeper, nobody should call you off of anything.
Yeah, and even if someone did, as the keeper, you shouldn't listen to that.
Yeah,
especially because he's already there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think brain lag is what happened to Kepa. But yeah, I don't want to be too harsh because he still has the best save percentage in the league. And one mistake shouldn't.
But
go ahead, 4.
Go
ahead.
We're talking about today's game, not about.
We'll go ahead. We'll go ahead and give him a 4.
Okay, I will probably agree on a 4. I was somewhere in between a 4 and a 5. I could have maybe pushed 4.5, but should we go high just because he caught a couple of crosses? Because in the end, City really didn't shoot at our goal much, did they? Because we just defended pretty well. Like Haaland had one moment in the first half, he blasted it over. De Bruyne had one moment where he blasted it wide, and then it had the goal. And when they hit the post from the header, and when Haaland basically missed the tap-in. Otherwise, I mean, how many saves really did he have to make? A shot from Gundogan, but not much to it. So I think 4 is fair. I think, I don't think this now makes Kepa the worst keeper in the world. All of a sudden, like I say, it's a split-second decision. He bottled it. Let's be honest. It was a mistake. He messed up. He will know better than anybody. But, hey, what else are you going to do? In the grand scheme of things, compared to some mistakes that other players make, especially in the last game, if you compare it to that, I don't think it's as big a mistake. But it's not good. But hey, we're on the lookout for a goalkeeper anyway in the summer, probably. So, let's see how much longer we have to deal with it. All right, then. Let's get to the 2 centre-backs. And I'll be honest, I was pretty happy with both of them. Silva defended well. The passing wasn't as slow as usual, I feel like. It was more further up the pitch that we constantly lost it. But at least on this occasion, when we lose the ball against Forest constantly, I'm like, come on, boys. But, I mean, it's Man City. There's a reason why they're as good as they are. And Chelsea, all the way, no one called Kepa world class. I don't know who you're talking to, but no one called him that. I think you made that up in your head, mate. But against Man City's press, I understand losing the ball in the area between the midfield and the attack a little bit. Like, I understand it. That's the whole point of what they do. That's why they've won 4 out of the last 5 Premier League titles. There's a reason. But I still think both Thiago Silva and Koulibaly did well. I mean, Erling Haaland didn't do much, today. Didn't do anything, really. Had that one sitter, missed it. So, swings and roundabouts. I'm not sure how high I want to go, but I will go quite high. I think, honestly, I'll probably give both the centre-backs a roughly equal rating because I think they were very similarly as good to each other. Oh, what I'm just realising, actually, they played the other way around today, somewhat surprisingly. The last few games, it was Silva on the left, Koulibaly on the right. It's the other way around. Arguably worked better. But do you think I'm being too harsh if I say 7.5? Or am I being too nice? What would you say, Clutch?
I don't. I mean, and what was it? Haaland didn't have a touch to like the 30th, 35th minute or something like that.
But he also didn't have a touch against West Ham, I think. So.
Yeah, but a lot of it, I really like how he switched Silva and Koulibaly today. Silva's obviously the better one-on-one defender to help Aspie. So when he does get in trouble, he is there. No, I don't think it's too high. I thought Silva was really good today. He also had a couple good forward passes. There's nothing I've seen him do wrong today, and I thought he had
our biggest and only chance of the second half, and it was unlucky because, I mean, we clearly should have had a corner because if it doesn't take the deflection, I think, of John Stones, it might be a goal. So...
yeah, there's that one too. I forgot about that. That was a really good shot.
Yeah. Is that enough to push it up to an 8? I'm very hesitant to give 8 to anybody when we lose. Although there is someone who I actually thought was better than Thiago Silva today. And if I give Thiago Silva 7.5, maybe that's someone I need to give an 8 to. But we will get to that later, I think. Bacham, is the 7.5 fair for you? Would you go higher? Would you go lower? What did you make of Thiago Silva's performance?
I think a 7.5 is fair, even though it is tough because he was almost flawless throughout the game, I'd say, in that capacity that you can be, instead of just, completing all passes. I thought he was good. Pocketed Haaland, and I think good for him as well, just another solid Thiago Silva performance. And as you touched upon earlier, helping out Aspie also reduces him as a liability. So, I
also think mostly it helped. I think Thiago Silva kept telling Aspie not to push up too much.
Exactly. I'd almost it's not to push Koulibaly down more, but I think I'd give him a 7.5 as well. I think that's fair. I don't have any reasonable reason other than I think someone else was better to give someone else to not give him an 8. So I think 7.5 is fair for his performance today.
Fair dues. Fair dues. All right, then let's move on to Koulibaly. Like I say, I didn't see much of a difference between the two. Obviously, Thiago Silva will be more commanding, but that's partly because he's more experienced, even though Koulibaly, of course, is experienced himself. But Thiago Silva has been the player longer at the football club. So between the two, it's always going to be Thiago Silva that's going to, command the back line. That you can only have one. It can't be both centre-backs constantly commanding, because then, you're going to have two different people commanding two different things, and then you're going to have a right mess. So it needs to be one of them. I don't think that should be held against Koulibaly. I think he was decent on the ball. He didn't make any mistakes in that sense. I think in the grand scheme of things, he did well against Haaland. Do I think that when they punt the ball long, he should at least try a bit harder to win a header against Haaland? Maybe. But also, he probably knew if I just stay on the ground, then he can't run around me after. Do you know what I mean? So that was probably thinking, and I guess it kind of worked out. So I honestly don't see why anyone would give him a lower rating. I didn't see anything different between Thiago Silva and Koulibaly. I thought they defended equally as well. There was some absolutely incredible tackles from Koulibaly at times out there today. Absolutely phenomenal stuff. Also, like the fact when in the second half he was like basically celebrating the tackle. I was like, yeah, this is the the Serie A DNA that we bought. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's plenty of problems with buying players from the Serie A. But at least, they will be gassed when they do something good defensively. And I think sometimes in certain games that is very much so needed. So I will give both of them a 7.5. And Bertram, I'll go straight to you on this one. Do you think it's fair to give them the same? Would you go a little bit lower for him than for Thiago Silva? What do you think?
No, I think it's fair, actually. I would give him a 7.5 as well. I thought he was good today. I thought, some of the things we signed him on is his athleticism and power. And leadership to an extent as well. So I thought he showed that today. He also stopped a couple of counterattacks after corners as well, which just showed the routine he has. So I'd give him a 7.5 as well. I think not much to distinguish him and Thiago Silva, and I thought they played really well. Maybe could have done a bit better on his man marking for the header on the post, where he kind of got lost from the two City players who headed it on the bar. So. Yeah, he did. I think he got a bit lost on it. Might have been the camera movement that's wrong. But
maybe he just weren't just like a 0.5 lower then, because obviously Thiago Silva nearly scored as well. And I don't think Thiago Silva. I don't think it was a case of Thiago Silva missing. I think it was a case of it got deflected, and that's why he didn't score. Obviously, we never know if maybe he would have missed anyway. But
yeah, but I think
lower, or would you stick to the same, bro?
I think I would stick to it as well. I thought that was just my general impression throughout the game, that they played to the same amount, to the same extent. Not to say that Thiago Silva wasn't good. I think Koulibaly has been someone we have criticized, and I think he deserves his plaudits for today. Where I think they deserve the same rating, in my opinion.
First. All right then, Clutch. I'll get to you. Do you think it's fair as well to give them both the same rating, or would you go for something different?
No, I think it's fair. I mean, Koulibaly handled it very well, especially on that side. I thought he was really quite strong within like a lot of clearances, blocking.
Look at what Charlie Harris is saying here, that Koulibaly switched in the second half. Did Thiago Silva and Koulibaly switch it in the second half? Did either of you guys notice?
I did not see that.
I'll be honest, I didn't really. I don't know. After I pay attention to it in the first half, then I'm like, okay, this is how it is today, and then I just save a memory as that. Bertram, did you at all notice that Thiago Silva and Koulibaly switched sides in the second half? Someone said that they did. Did you see that potentially?
No. I'm just watching it back now. In the 83rd minute, it was they were building up in this formation as well. So it might have been earlier.
Thiago on the right and Koulibaly on the left?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then,
but it's not something that I
just watch that in period. Okay. Fair enough. But yeah, Clutch, sticking with the same 7.5 you said, yeah?
Yeah, I think we can give him a 7.5. I think it'd kind of be unfair to Koulibaly if we give him and Thiago Silva different ratings. I think Koulibaly was probably had a lot more to do because City identified that right-hand side. I mean, in the first half, if you're here in the U.S., it's on Peacock, and the halftime was showing how City just clearly wanted to attack the right-hand side. There was about 5 or 6 players over there next to Koulibaly and Cucurella. And with Kovacic, Zakaria, Cucurella, and Pulisic, and, Chukwuemeka in the end, and then Cucurella, they all kind of handled defensive duties quite well. So I would give him a 7.5 as well.
First, let's get to Aspie then. And Aspie today is a really tricky one for me. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, please do subscribe. We're under 20,000 subscribers. There's over 240 of you watching. So please do subscribe if you haven't already. It'd be massively appreciated. Smash the like button as well. If you want to get involved in the conversation, do use the super chat function. Of course, you don't have to, but if you want to, you're very welcome to. And smash the like button because it helps me spread these streams and videos out to more people. And I would massively appreciate that. But getting back to Aspie, it's a difficult one because, especially in the first half, I think Foden had nearly as little touches as Erling Haaland. So basically, City didn't whatsoever use their left-hand side, which you could argue made Aspie look good because he didn't have to do anything. As soon as they brought Grealish on for Foden and they actually used the left-hand side, which is weird. How has this happened to Foden? Like everyone was saying, Foden is by far the greatest England player, and now he doesn't start all the time for City. When he does, he's kind of poor. Doesn't start for England either once they got to the latter stage of the World Cup. How's that happened? But anyway, in the end, then it wasn't great again, was it? Obviously, how he got so easily kind of done for the goal. But he wasn't at his worst today. I'm kind of, I don't know, he just wasn't really tested much. When he was, sometimes he dealt with it, sometimes he didn't. So I'm not really sure if I want to give him an average or maybe potentially just below average. I don't think you should get anything above average, but I'm not sure how far below average. If I want to go below average, I do want to go. I do think I don't want to give him an average because his weaknesses forced us to change our tactics today. And if a player has weaknesses that forced to change the tactics when we don't actually want to, that is basically you're starting at a minus, from the get-go. And I think that's unfortunately the case with Aspie. Maybe that's a bit harsh, but therefore I'm going to at least go 4.5. I don't quite want to give him an average 6. Clutch, what would you give him? Would you go even lower than a 5.5? I just don't think he was needed enough and therefore, or was asked that much off for it to be fair to give him much lower than a 5.5. I'm honest.
I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, like, do I want to give him the 5? But I'm like, I don't know if I want to give him the 5 because, like you said, like he hinders this team insane, like a lot. But again, it's just, was he really a 5 today? No. So, yeah, 5.5. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. But what do you think? Obviously, there was one moment where him and Ziyech just, well, I say one. They had a couple of moments where these two guys kind of messed up a few attacks on the right-hand side. Was it a lack of communication? Was it a lack of relationship of playing with each other? Because, well, Ziyech doesn't play a lot. And Aspie, when Reece James is fit, doesn't play a lot. So those are annoying, but they didn't happen that often for me to go that drastically low. But Bertrand, would you even potentially give him the average rating, or what would you give him today, mate?
Yeah, to be fair, I actually would give him a 6. I thought, in the capacity that he has, I thought he was decently average. I think we need to respect as well. We are frustrated that he did get beat by Jack Grealish, but he did get beat by a £100 million player. I would expect more from a Chelsea right back, but I think you have to look isolated at the situation and see, okay, our best player normally is our right back. Now we have our club captain who is, on the ropes, if we're honest with ourselves. And I thought he went out there and performed to the best of his ability. To me, I thought he played a 6. Maybe not normal standard of a 6, but I thought he played a 6. I thought he did. I seem to recall he got up on a couple of attacks in the first half with Ziyech, where I thought he was all right. I think he won as a corner as well. So to be fair for the performance he put in, I would give him a 6. I don't think he was particularly at fault for the goal. So I struggle to see why, being the player that he is, I should give him lower. But, it seems like I've been outrating here. So I'd be fair with the 5.5. But personally, he's a 6 for me.
Okay. Fair dues. I mean, we're going to obviously keep the 5.5.
I do think
being advised. Sorry, Clutch? You were saying?
I do think Aspie should have closed Grealish down a little bit better because he kind of just let him do what he was doing.
Yeah, I mean, it was a difficult one because, like I say, Grealish got fed the ball just at the edge of the box. So by the time Aspie would have got, they would have been in the box. So then you obviously risk giving a penalty away if you close down too quickly. He takes one step around you and he's one moment to keeper. So I understand that from that, once you are there, it's a bit difficult. But I think his positioning I think he was just too close to, I assume, Thiago Silva, but Charlie Harris in the chat saying that Koulibaly and Thiago swapped until the goal, and then they swapped back to how it was in the first half. So whoever he was closest to, whichever defender it was, I think it was a little bit too close to him. But it's just really difficult because he's a yard or two too central. And from that point onwards, that's not really that much you can do. And the mistake that, he was a couple of yards too central is so easy to make that I don't want to be too harsh on it. But I do still understand what you're saying. Absolutely.
Grealish did actually initially, Grealish almost scored from the exact same thing last season. If it was only like a Mendy save. So he is good at coming into that, cutting in from our right back. So.
Absolutely. No, I do agree. And he's good. He's good at that. And, as you can see, people take the piss out of him and what a flop of a signing he is and this and that, whatever else. But, certainly they were a lot more threatening when he was on instead of Phil Foden, that's for sure. All right, let's get to Cucurella then. And I'll say something that maybe a lot of people in the chat, judging by a few of the things I've read, are going to drastically disagree with. But I'm going to give Cucurella a 7. And if I didn't think he could have done a little better for keeping up with Mahrez for the goal, I would have given him the same 7.5 I gave Koulibaly and Thiago Silva. I generally thought it was very good in the grand scheme of things, other than that one moment. He was defensively good. He barely got beaten. He did well in the one-on-ones against Bernardo Silva. He did well in the one-on-ones against Bruyne. He did well in most one-on-ones against Mahrez. He passed it out aggressively from the back. Sure, he could be involved in the attack, but I genuinely think he was good. And I think people need to pay a little bit more attention to how football works when they criticize someone for, losing the ball in a position where they were put under so much pressure. They had two options. Either you try and keep the ball or we give the ball straight back to Man City, and then we had even less possession. And he's the only guy that actually had the balls to not punt it and try those passes. And very often it worked out. So, I think we should give credit. I think Cucurella, in the grand scheme of things, even the last couple of games before the World Cup, has started to look better and better and better. Is he amazing? Is he worth the 60 million that we paid? 55, sorry. Maybe not. But imagine we didn't buy him. Who would be playing for us at left back right now? Marcos Alonso? Because Chilwell's injured.
I just had a shiver go down my spine hearing that name again.
But of course, he could also be Lewis Hall. And to be fair, every time I see him play, I'm like, that kid needs to be played more. Every time he plays, I'm like, and that, by the way, I mean, I touch on it when we get to Lewis Hall as the subset because I really want to touch on this. But yeah, I'll give Cucurella 7. I understand that some players will give him less. No, but as people say Hall, but would Hall actually play if we didn't sign Cucurella? No, we would either have kept Alonso or we would have bought some other random Donny that would be playing over Hall as well. Which I mean, let's not lie to ourselves. But I'll go with you first, Bertram. Do you think I'm going too high with the 7, or what would you make of Cucurella, mate?
No. I defended Cucurella on Twitter and got absolutely hammered. So I know what you're feeling. I thought he was good today. And I don't really understand the criticism because when you look at, I think before the substitutions, when I thought he combined really well with Pulisic. Like you said, he did the pass to Havertz, which ultimately led to the chance for Pulisic. So naturally, when you sub Chukwuemeka on, who isn't as good as a Pulisic and doesn't maybe fill the same role, his options offensively become limited when he has to play with Chukwuemeka. So it'd be difficult for me to expect him to always come up, especially because, when we have Ziyech on the other side and Aspie is able to come up, Ziyech, holds the ball. So I thought defensively he was solid. He also did, in a sense, have to mark two men when, Cancelo had the ball and Gundogan made the deep runs. So I thought, for the player he is, I'd give him a 7. And I really hope people would stop criticizing him because, it's not his fault that he, both came from Brighton and he cost what he did. I think he's doing his best. And I think he brings us some energy as well, which I touched upon at the start of the season. Some much needed energy. And he has some rashness about him, which a couple of times today kind of rattled City and kind of forced him to switch side in his press because he is so, offensive in it. So I'd give him a 7 today as well. I thought he was good, and I don't know if I hope people do it think that as well. I don't really care, but I think we should give him the plaudits for, again, another solid performance.
First, just before I go to Clutch, Mahashi, Pys is and was at the game, and it has a bit of a journey home after, so will not make it on the stream, but I'm sure he will be here for the City preview on Saturday. Clutch, do you agree with the 7? Do you think it should be a little bit less than that? What do you reckon?
See, here's the thing. If you go to look at like Cucurella's stats which obviously you need to have both stats and you need to have the eye test, in my opinion. I think a lot of people are looking at the stat that he was dribbled past 10 or 5 times, and obviously that doesn't look good.
Feel true, to be honest.
But I think people also kind of like, I've seen somebody in the chat who said he's at fault for the goal. It's like, no, if you've ever played the game, sometimes somebody just gets a sprint on you. That's just how it is, and you're not going to be able to catch up. So I tend to be more at fault for Kepa than Cucurella was.
Absolutely. Like if anyone thinks Cucurella is more at fault than Kepa, like you just mentioned it there, the defense has to hold the line. The attacker can run with a run up, and then the defender can only start running once the ball is played in, because before that he can't leave his line, because then either he's playing people onside or he's giving people space because he's pushing, the line on one side higher. So, he can only start running then. And people that say he was rubbish, sorry, but you don't understand football whatsoever. I'll just be as plain as I can, because people just trigger me. It was rubbish. At least explain why, man. You're just a stupid people. Use your words, man. Did you go to school? You learned how to speak, right? So
I think it's genuinely just some people only see end stats. Like, oh yeah, well, Mahrez was the guy he was guarding, so he got.
They don't look at stats, bro.
It's the goal assist thing. Like, they're thinking, oh, Cucurella was the one guarding Mahrez. He was the one. He should have stopped him. If he doesn't, he's bad. That's it. I think that's just how people see it. People tend to see things in black and white. It's not that. Life is not black and white. It's nuance. Like, that position for Cucurella was really hard. That's why you have other players on the field who are supposed to help you, like a Kepa, who is supposed to make that angle harder for him to actually get that ball and tap it in. But I would say overall, Cucurella had a lot more on his plate to deal with because of how much was coming down his side, especially on the second half when that's what they wanted to do in the second play. So, of course, he's going to get skinned. I mean, that's just, you're having to deal with KDB and Silva went over there at some point. So it's not really his fault. I would give him a 7. I thought he did well for what he needed to do.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, someone asked, was Lewis Hall better going forward? And yes, absolutely he was. And I do think if there is one thing that Cucurella needs to work on, it's his offensive play. And by that, I don't even mean the crossing he can work on, absolutely. It's more just how his mind needs to tell him, I need to get into this whole position. It's like he just doesn't go there. Rather than that he's bad at it, he just doesn't do it, which I think are two slightly different things. I'm not 1,000,000% sure if it's instruction or not, but, it's certainly one thing that he needs to work on. And if he wants to become a player that is going to be cherished by all sets of fans, then he needs to do more offensively. But again, I think the game against Man City is a bit of a tough example. And usually we have the idea of we're playing a back four, but only one side of the fullbacks attacks, just like Jose Mourinho always did it, by the way.
I also don't think
not every team bombed forward with both fullbacks, because you don't usually do that. And against City, you definitely don't do that. But did Lewis Hall do well? Absolutely. But we will get to him later on. Clutch, you were saying something, go on?
I also don't think Chukwuemeka came back hardly enough, or as much as Pulisic did in the first 15 minutes to kind of help defensively. I think he was a little bit higher up.
I agree with that, if I'm honest. I think Chukwuemeka, helped out a lot, if I'm honest. Obviously, Pulisic did help out really well in that situation as well. But, I mean, he only played 20 minutes. It's easy to, do something well for 20 minutes compared to 70. Do you know what I mean? So, I would really say that. But, maybe you saw something that I didn't see. Absolutely. Let's get to Mateo Kovacic then. I guess I'm just keeping his career for after. It's a weird one to me today, Kovacic, because defensively, he was absolutely phenomenal. Positionally, he was phenomenal. Dribbling, there was a lot of very, very good things. But I'll be honest, his passing was pretty poor on a lot of occasions. The amount of unnecessary misplaced passes was really bad. But he has still had a good game. So I don't really know what I want to do with that. Because, when Mount is there and, someone passes as badly as Kovacic today, everyone blames Mount for lack of creativity. Now, Mount doesn't play, so Kovacic has to do the midfield creativity, and he doesn't do it, and everyone praises him anyway, which I just don't really understand how that is possible. But for what he did against Man City, being a defensive midfielder in a double pivot today, he did good. I just think his passing should have been better. I will give him, I will be harsh. I know a lot of people go higher. I will say 6.5 because I thought the passing should have been better. Should I go 7? But Okay, no, I'll go 7. I'll go 7, but I still think the passing should have been better. So, Clutch, what about you?
I am going to guarantee that Pius DMs me later and cusses me out. So, because I'm going to go 6.5. I do think that final passing was really, really detrimental. There's a couple times when, even though I think one time he turned and it was towards Aubameyang, and I think I blame Aubameyang more than I would blame him for what happened. But I think I do think that needs to improve on Kovacic. I really do. Like, I mean, you're too good of a player to only be able to dribble out of the situation and then not have anything else to do. Like, I don't really like that he did that. But that's what I would give 6.5.
Okay, Bertram. 7, 6.5 in that realm, or are you going to go for something different?
I would go for a 7 personally. I do agree that the passing wasn't optimal. He had one that really frustrated me for Lewis Hall at the end, where he just smashed it out the side for a really promising counterattack. But I thought he was amazing. The first couple of minutes, I think we really missed him. He was, almost as press resistant, as you could be. His dribbling was fantastic, and I thought he was good, super defensively. So he filled a very difficult role, being in a pivot against Man City when they pressed that high. And I want to reward him for that. But I think his final pass does detriment him. But I wouldn't go as low as a 6.5. I think he was one of our best players. And I think the rating reflects that. So it'd be a 7 for me.
Because if he had good passing today, he could have warranted like easily an 8. So therefore,
exactly.
I'm like, how much am I going to downgrade you by for the poor passing? Which wasn't like every pass, but like, a few too many passes, absolutely. But yeah, there you go. We leave him on a 7 and we go to Zakaria. My Chelsea man of the match today, of course, not the man of the match of the whole game, but my Chelsea man of the match today. And I will give him an 8 of a rating. Now, he still has his thing, and someone just replied to it in the comments as well. It just doesn't seem like a guy that would be in a sport like football, because he doesn't seem, I don't know, like to have the best control of his whole body. Like, he controls the ball. And I swear, even his bloody ear moves. That's how much he moves every time he does anything. But especially when it's not a game where we're dominating possession, the guy is a real unit and a real asset to have in the team, genuinely. Like, the more we dominate a game, the more I think there can be certain issues. But today he played very well. There was this wonderful moment, it was quite late in the second half, when he just somehow kept the ball and drag backs and, ball rolls and all sorts of things. Like, he was really fighting. He was working. Like for Kovacic a little bit, there was a few occasions where he certainly could have, passed quicker and better, especially in the first half when we had a bit more attacking going on. But, fair play. Fair play. Considering the guy made his Premier League debut against Bournemouth on not Boxing Day, but on the 27th of December, and has then started 3 games in a row. He probably didn't dream of that in his wildest dreams before going to the World Cup, or when he was at the World Cup, considering he basically didn't play whatsoever until now. And now 3 starts in a row, his first full 90 as well, because until now, obviously, always got sub. People criticize it. Was he fit for full 90? Because when was the last time Zakaria played a full 90? I don't think he played a full 90 this season. He didn't for Switzerland, and not at the World Cup anyway. Maybe he did in some friendlies in September. But yeah, I thought he did very well today. And hats off to him. I honestly, when we came back from the World Cup, I didn't expect Zakaria to be kind of the biggest positive from the first 3 games back. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I did not see that one coming. But fair play to him. He's done very well. Bertram, I'll go with you. Do you agree that he was Chelsea's man of the match? And do you agree with an 8 rating, or would you go for something different? Would you even go higher? Some people are saying 9 and 8.5. I'm like, we still lost the game, but it's like, I can't go that high.
Yeah, I would love to. I know I said I didn't like pessimism. I would love to be that optimistic about it. I love Zakaria. I think he's a role, not only that he's a role that we really need, that 6/8 who just has the large physical frame, which we've lacked of for many seasons. I thought he was good today. I thought he provided the defensive stability, which I know we've needed, the height from set pieces as well, and the dribble, at the end of the game. It's fantastic. Turned into Kovacic there. So I think, especially because of the journey he's been through, I think the rating would demonstrate it. I think he's one of the players who has a mentality that is fit for Chelsea. Even after I think it was the Bournemouth win, he was out and criticized his own performance, which is something that you'd love to see in a player. That even though they won, they want to improve, they want to get better. And arriving in the shape he did at the end of the transfer window with a signing that had all of the shades of Saul in it as well. I think we've seen a player who really wants to succeed and has worked for it and is now beginning to bear fruits of it. So I would give him an 8, and I hope to see him, constantly improve. And who knows, maybe when summer comes, we go to Juventus and we get him back, because he seems to be getting better game from game. And unlike a lot of these players, I think
we're not getting in though. Oh, we could do with some midfielders.
Yeah, and I think unlike a lot of these players, not today, but throughout the season, I think he can go home and look himself in the mirror and say, okay, he did his best. He fought his way into the team, and he's fighting to stay there. And as far as I'm concerned, there's no reason he shouldn't be starting the next Premier League against, I don't know, Fulham or whoever we have after that.
Maybe he does need a bit of a rest for the weekend.
I would say so as well. After having 3 in a row, making his Premier League debut, like you said. But I think an 8. I think great player
on the weekend, but
yeah, who we even play on Sunday?
Exactly. We play on Sunday again. But at least it's against the same team, so they won't exactly have more rest. But they have a better squad to rotate, while we have 10 injuries, so but there you go. 2-8 so far. So you're probably not going to, sway the needle all too much, move the needle, sorry. But potentially you even agree. Was he your Chelsea man of the match today? Or you're like, what do you think? I thought he was very good, honestly, in the grand scheme of things.
He is my man of the match. I thought he was really, really good, to be honest. I think there's not much more to be said about him. Like, you guys said it all. There's only one thing I could criticize him for, and that was when he somehow broke into the midfield and he had Havertz, but he chose to go to Ziyech, and Havertz had 10 yards of space that he could have made a decision. But that's about the only thing I could count against him today, and that's saying something in a game against City for a guy who's not played very much this year. And I only counted one time where I was not really happy with what he did. So I'd say an 8, man of the match.
There you go. You know what's super interesting? Just looking at their stats. The stats here say that Kovacic had attempted 1 dribble and was successful at it. I certainly saw more than 1 dribble from Mateo Kovacic. And it said that Zakaria completed the most dribbles with 3, and 3 out of 3. His stats are very good.
It's because
92% pass accuracy, 48 from 52 passes. He had, how many touches did he have? 63 touches, 3 out of 3 dribbles, 3 out of 3 long balls, accurate long balls, sorry. Tackles 1 is 1 out of 1. But again, the whole tackle stat is always a bit weird because he definitely had more than 1 tackle. So, certainly had a good game. But glad.
You know what it is?
Gone.
It's that Zakaria holds down the LT button when he dribbles. Kovacic doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. Yeah. No, I agree. All right, then. Rating of 8 for Zakaria. And move on. Who shall we do next? Let's do Hakim Ziyech. Like Clutch said, when I heard that he would start, I'm like, don't think it's too undeserved. He had a good World Cup. Let's try to use his confidence and, good spirits from that. He had a good cameo appearance against Brentford. Nearly won us the game with a wonderful assist if Aubameyang wasn't useless. Won us the game. But today, I don't know. When he was on the pitch, I always felt we need to give him the ball more, because I still always felt he was the most likely to do anything, to create something serious, even though it was actually Havertz that created by far the most. But it felt like Ziyech was going to be the guy to do it. He didn't. And I still feel we didn't give him the ball enough. He also looked to get tired the longer the game went on, so I understood taking him off, even though I still think it harmed us a little bit, because I just think Ziyech, see, the thing that I have with him is I feel like every opponent, no matter who it is, every opponent is a little bit scared of Ziyech doing something magical. Because I feel like when we have someone other than Ziyech, I feel like the opponents never look at all concerned. But when Ziyech has the ball, I feel like they all look a little bit concerned. Not that he does something very often, but they still look concerned, which is a bit scary if he's our only real fear factor in the team nowadays. But, that's not his fault. About the performance, I thought it was average. I'd honestly probably give him a 6, maybe 6.5. I don't think he did that much, if I'm being perfectly honest. I mean, Clutch, help me out before I make a decision. What did you do? You think he warrants an average rating, or what would you make of it? I'm
getting thrown under the bus here. I don't know. I'd probably go 6 if you had to press me on it. I was sitting here trying to decide what I wanted to do because I'm like, I can't remember that many things that he did to help and create. I know he was kind of putting crosses across left and right, but nothing
only had
really.
1 out of 7 accurate crosses. So
I know.
0 out of
on my
3
screen, he had
long
said.
balls.
My screen says
Although, do
yeah.
the 2 corners count to these 7 crosses, or are they? Only...
Yes, I'm pretty sure they do.
Okay.
Because I usually see crosses come from Mount when he
Yeah.
plays in the midfield. I'm like, but when did he do that? And it's usually just because he does corners. So corners do count.
He's done it a few. So that is something that we obviously have to consider a little bit as well. When we were off the ball, it kind of, when it was Aubameyang, it kind of turned into this. Well, initially, when City had the ball with their defense, it was that one. When City got the ball into midfield and then our defensive areas, we shaped it like this. So then Ziyech dropped back as an 8. So obviously he wasn't going to be quite as involved in the attacking because he obviously always had deeper starting position than the others. But still, in the grand scheme of things, when obviously we had the ball, it was like this. So yeah, sorry, I cut you off there, but I just thought I should probably explain that quickly.
Yeah, no, I'm going to go with the 6. I can't find a reason to go down to 5.5, but I also can't find a reason to go to 6.5. So
yeah, fair enough. I mean, Bazooka keeps being extremely adamant in the chat that Ziyech is the guy that cost us the goal, and therefore he should get a 2. I'm not sure how Ziyech cost us the goal, if I'm honest. Maybe I'd need to watch a longer replay of it back. But from my memory, I'm not sure. Gone.
I said, as far as I'm concerned, the goal doesn't happen if Kepa grabs the ball that is 3 inches away from his glove. So you really can't say somebody else is at fault for it when it could be stopped by somebody else.
Yeah, but Bazooka does love a good spam. Do you want to, like, Bazooka, I'm going to give you 2 options. Either you calm it down a little bit because you're just spamming a bit too hard. Either you just calm it down yourself, or we give you a 5-minute timeout and we just make you spam a little bit less that way. You can just pick, okay? So we'll just give you a couple of minutes and we'll see which one of the 2 you choose. Well, I was going to ask Bertram about Ziyech right now, but he's not on camera right now, so I'm sure he'll be back in a second. I think I'll agree with you, Clutch. I don't think he warrants a 6.5. I don't think he warrants a 5.5. I could really give him a 5.5 because he was kind of the player that was supposed to be the most creative player that we had today, and he didn't really create anything. All the others created more. You know what? Because we still did lose and we didn't really create much, I'm actually going to change my mind to a 5.5. Actually, I'm not sure if it changes your mind at all, Clutch, but I'll go with Bertram first. Clutch said 6. I said 5.5. I initially was on a 6 as well, maybe even 6.5, but then I kind of changed my mind and now I'm at 5.5. So what would you give him, mate?
I don't think I'd give him lower than a 6, if I'm honest. I think he was better than Aspie.
That is true.
I was thinking a 6.5, but that's only because he gave me the optimism and he gave City the fear factor. I can't really justify it, but I think he was better than average. I thought his pressing was good as well. When I looked at the goal again, it's true he didn't come back and held Aspie, but that's because he just sprinted 70 yards all the way up to press Ederson and was maybe a bit inaccurate.
Which is, by the way, and maybe we should actually hold him accountable to that a little bit on that note, because there's a reason why we didn't press them all the way back to the goalie all game long, and there's a reason why they barely had the space to play through us. As soon as we all of a sudden pressed, they had the space to play through us. What happens? We concede. We have to be honest like that a little bit.
That could be true, and I think Ederson is maybe not the one you should be pressing, but alas, there's maybe
not
an explanation.
really on his own. Like, I know Aubameyang and then Kai followed through with him, but still.
Yeah, maybe, but it's an explanation at least for why he wasn't there.
At least he's he put the work
because he's not a lazy player.
He couldn't be bothered to run. It's different, right?
Yeah, you look at Ziyech, you get that thing. No, I'd give him a 6.5 personally, because I think I really hope to see the Ziyech they had for Morocco, because I think he does have the fear factor with the left foot as well. And he does press. If you can, put the genie in the bottle in a sense and coach him to press better in a sense, if that makes some sort of sense, I think it would be good. But I think I'd personally give him a 6.5.
Yes, first. Overall, maybe you've now convinced me again to give him a 6, which leaves us at a 6, regardless of whether I go 6 or 5.5. There's a couple of people in the chat. Logitech wants to give him an 8. Not quite sure how you can possibly give.
I'm sure he always wants to give Ziyech an 8, so just move on with that.
And Yusuf is also said Sid was the best attacking player. What good game were we watching? Some other people want to give him a 2. Some people want to give him a 5.5. Yeah. Everyone's going to have a different opinion. We give him a 6 in the end. Chukwuemeka. Wow. I'm a big fan, when he was on the pitch, I said to my girlfriend when we were watching the game, he looks like a cyborg, because he's tall, but he's not tall like a Peter Crouch, not as tall, but not the way he's lanky. But he's also not tall like a Badiashile, for example, who's, just a huge man in every proportion. But he's like slender, but muscly, but athletic, but quick and, just agile. Like, I'm a big fan of the player. The fact that he's only 19 and, Hutchinson obviously was his very first game, and Chukwuemeka has had Premier League games before. But how Chukwuemeka came on in that situation, like so early, with kind of a lot of pressure in a way. And the way he performed, like, unlike Clutch, I also think he tracked back a lot, worked hard all game long, had a lot of good interceptions, hit the post, had by far biggest chance of the game with that, and played it well too. So, and nearly had, on the cutback from Kine the first half, nearly had a huge chance there as well if the City defender didn't intercept it. I'm genuinely tempted to give him a 7.5 for Koulibaly and Silva, if I'm being perfectly honest with you, which I know sounds crazy because we didn't score, we didn't really have a particularly high XG, but 95% of our XG came from him. And the fact that he's 19 years old, wow. Honestly, I think whether Sterling is injured or not, Chukwuemeka should be playing over Sterling no matter what. Like, and he's not even a real winger. And the fact that he still performs like this on the wing, impressive. Against City. Now, he certainly needs to be given, I'm not saying he needs to start every game now, but he certainly needs to be used a lot more. And if he plays like similar to today every time, then he needs to absolutely start regularly because, we're 10th. The season is not fully over. There's still chances here and there, but, the season is probably most likely a write-off. I would personally rather finish 8th than 6th because then we might win the Premier League next year because last time we won the Premier League, we won in Europe. So, I'd certainly rather come 8th than 7th and play fucking Conference League. That would be literally my worst nightmare. But yeah, I'm not. Do I want to give him a 7.5? You know what? Because he's 19, I'm going to say 7.5. Maybe it's slightly over the top because we didn't score and everything, but on the basis of that he's 19, that he came on one of by far the most minutes he's had at Chelsea. Usually it's been sub appearances in the Premier League of a few minutes, and now he played 70 plus. I think he did very, 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 very well. Clutch, what about you? Do you think 7.5 is too high?
You know what? No, I don't. I'm sitting here debating whether I wanted to do 7 or 7.5, but I think you convinced me. He also had that one really good cross.
Yeah, that Havertz. Yeah, it was difficult because I think Havertz thought Aubameyang would get on it, but then he didn't, and then Havertz didn't have time to shoot, but the control wasn't great either. But then he fell to Thiago Silva and he nearly scored, so,
Yeah, so I thought he played really well, especially offensively. I thought, again, like you just said, like he should be probably playing over Sterling, but at this point, I'd play him at striker. Why not? You know what? How tall is he?
So
he's 6'1". Play him at striker. That's the solution.
I'm not sure height is all we need because otherwise, just stick Mendy up top. But yeah, Fez 7.5. Stem Bertram, are you going to agree with that? Do you think we're slightly overdoing it with the praise here, or would you agree?
Well, boys, I think we're moving into some optimism here, and I love it. I'd go with the 7.5 as well. I thought it was a breath of fresh air to come on, especially because I think some of the things I've criticized Sterling for, especially these last couple of games and before the World Cup as well, was because he's not direct enough. So I was really happy to see, especially the shot on the post where he had the option to take the save. I think Cucurella maybe was overlapping, could have been Kava. But he decided to say, no, okay, fair enough. And then he went and took the shot, and it could have easily gone in. I thought it was a hard shot as well, both to make and with power. So I'd give him a 7.5 as well. And I think he's going to cook when we have to play some Ludogorets team next year. It's going to be brilliant. So 7.5, and he's going to be my shout for the player of the season in the Conference League next year. So moving on to the next one.
Hey, don't jinx it, man. At least Europa League. Come on, we can do it. But first, 7.5 for big man Carney Chukwuemeka. If only his name wasn't so long. Kai Havertz. He's going to split opinions today, isn't he? Because I think he was pretty good in the grand scheme of things. Created 4 chances, I mean, that's probably more than he created for the entire rest of the season. Create 4 chances, 85% pass accuracy, which is the 10 is good. He had one shot, but that was the backwards header, which was from an offside position anyway, which the ref didn't give. So therefore, it counted as a shot, even though obviously had it gone in, it wouldn't have counted. Which is weird when you think about it. So stats will include it when it was offside, but the ref didn't give it. But when you score an offside goal, even though it wasn't even you that was offside, but someone in the build-up was offside, it still doesn't count anything towards like your ratings, and no one is ever mentioned in your stat. It's kind of weird how stats work that way, isn't it? He was only dispossessed twice. For him, he was only offside once. That's pretty good. He had 2 interceptions, that's 7 recoveries as well. 4 out of 7 ground duels. The only thing I think he should have done better on today is in the air, because City don't have the best centre-backs aerially. So the fact that they only won 2 out of 8 aerial duels isn't amazing. But, obviously, as the striker, it's when you're playing as defensive as we did, you're kind of running after aerial duels more than you're properly setting them. But he obviously wasn't amazing either. There was a potential square to Aubameyang early in the game where I don't know if this will come if Kai Havertz ever manages to hit full confidence and just better form. If then he starts trusting his right foot more, but especially when the form isn't great, when the team is performing well, the guy just doesn't have a weak foot, which is weird because when we signed him, everyone kept telling me how great his weak foot is. But whenever I see him, he's very, very heavily left-footed, which is why he didn't play that one. And then he did play a few very, very good through balls, actually, when he did have it on his correct foot. And, he showed that he can be creative. I really liked a lot of what he did. I don't want to give him a 7 anyway. So I'm going to give him a 6.5. I still think it was better than this. But there were still frustrating moments. That's the problem with Kai. He has good moments. He has bad moments. That's just Kai. I don't know. I mentioned a lot of good things, and now I'm only giving him a 6.5 anyway. I know that it's slightly weird, but I still just don't quite think he warrants a 7. Maybe he does.
His performance in the 10, I think, definitely did. But when he was moved up at striker in the second half, I thought he didn't really do anything. So I think you'd have to look at it as
did anyone in the whole team do anything then? I don't know.
We had a good move with Lewis Hall then, and it was around the point of the cross as well.
Actually, that's a good point. I didn't even think about it, the fact that he obviously by the end then he was up front again, not as a 10. That's true. I think his spell as a 10 warrants a 7. His spell as not a 10 warrants a 6, maybe a 5.5. But the 7 was longer of the game, a longer period. Therefore, I'm going to stick to the 6.5. I think a 6.5 is pretty reasonable. Didn't have any shot on target. Actually, he did. Officially, he had a shot on target. This was from an offside position, but officially, unfortunately, Bazooka, you're wrong. He did have a 6.5. People say, a shot at least now, but is that always the point? Was he ever in a position today where he should have shot? I still, because he played as a 10 today, he set up chances, he created 4 chances. When he doesn't create a chance, people say, oh, he's so not creative. And then when he does, people complain about other things instead of praising that he was a bit more creative for once. So I just find that a bit strange. It's I don't know. When there's things to criticize, when I criticize Kovacic passing badly, people are like, what the fuck are you talking about? But, how can you see that but not that? It confuses me. But, Bratcham, I'll go with you. No, you finished already. But what rate? Did you agree with the 6.5 in the end? Sorry.
Yeah, I would have given a 7, but I think you've convinced me to give him the 6.5. I thought his runs from deep as well were good. When he plays in that 10, he's allowed to run from deeper, which amounted to the Alba chance. So I'd give him a 6.5 as well.
Okay, Clutch. What about you then? 2 6.5s. Would you agree with that? Would you go lower? What do you think?
A 7. I give him a 7. Even today, I think even his close ball control was really good. There was a lot of times when he was in tight spaces and he kind of got out of it. And that's something you don't really see from him these days because he doesn't do it much. And I do want to give him
the difference that it makes whether he has to do that close control with 2 6'4" centre backs behind him, or whether he does it against midfielders where he can physically win, and what a difference that makes in how well he can handle it. And that's why I always thought he would be better in those positions.
And I really want to highlight that point where people love to talk shit about Havertz. And they're like, yeah, he's not creative enough. And then when he does create chances, well, he didn't shoot enough. No, I'm going to give Havertz his praise today. I'm going to say 7. Sorry.
There you go. Sorry, just Charlie Harris in the chat said he gave the ball away so much. Well, he had better passing accuracy than I think every other forward, other attacker that we had.
I mean, technically, Ziyech had the most.
No,
Giveaway,
Ziyech had a
so-
pass accuracy of 73%.
I know. Technically, Ziyech gave the ball away most.
Ziyech gave it away the most. Okay.
Yeah, so if he wants to go after Havertz for that, go after Ziyech. Do I really need to scroll up and see what you said about Ziyech? Do you really want me to do that?
Well, who knows? Actually, he had the same passing accuracy as Chukwuemeka, so similarities. I don't think you can say gave the ball away all that many times. Does it say the stat anywhere? Dispossessed twice. That isn't that many times either, if I'm honest. So got 1 or 2 fouls. So it was I thought it was okay. Aubameyang. I'm going to give him a 2 for the 2 boots he put on today and the fact it helped them run around. But other than running around, he didn't do anything. Now, of course, if Lewis was here, he would tell me, well, if Havertz squared it to him, Aubameyang would have scored. And yeah, he would have done. But there was still a whole other 70-odd minutes that he was on the pitch for in which he didn't do anything. Literally nothing. Useless defensively, useless offensively, too slow for anything. Slower than Nathan Ake. Aubameyang used to once upon a time be one of, if not the fastest footballer in the world. He's not even quicker than Nathan Ake anymore. Literally, Charlie said he's a worse signing than Lukaku, and we're nearing it. He came on only because Sterling got injured after 2 minutes, and then he got subbed off for an 18-year-old in the 70-odd minutes. That is crazy, but a bit fun. But yeah, I'm going to give him a 2. Could I give him a 3? Yes. Could I give him a 1? Yes. But I just don't know what he did. I mean, I can go to his stats. Let me quickly see.
You don't want to look at that. You really don't.
77% pass accuracy, 14 touches, still played how many minutes? 63 minutes. 1 out of 2 ground duels, 1, 0 out of 1 aerial duels, 1. Fouls committed, 1. Was fouled, 0.
1 out of 1 promo where he said nothing personal.
Mate, it's personal to me that we signed you. That's personal, I'll tell you that much. Bertram, what rate would you give him?
I don't really know. I think a 2 is fine. I didn't really think about him. I would agree a bit with what Lewis said in the preview that if we had creators around him, he would be good. I think this version of no, we don't. But this version of him is just, he's a poacher, and I think he's probably a pretty decent poacher, but we don't have the creativity to do anything about it.
He's never been a poacher in his whole life, has he?
I think when he's evolved to this point of his career where he's lost the pace, which made him, so lethal, especially for Dortmund. When he played for Barca last season, they had elite creators, especially elite wingers, to help him a bit. And I think he was good for them last season, and I was a bit stoked that we got him. But I think this performance doesn't really warrant anything, and I was disappointed with his miss against Nottingham as well. So I think 2 is fine, but I hope. Yeah, I think Hope's gone with him. I won't, however, allow the thought that he's a worse signing than Lukaku.
No,
I'm
not sure I fully back Sally on that one.
nothing's worse than that. But yeah, I think 2's fine. Let's talk about someone
Aubameyang
else.
still has some time to give an interview, but even then, he didn't cost 100 million, so he's never going to be as bad, is he? Just quickly, because obviously Aubameyang got subbed off again, and I can't add a third sub here. Just for clarification, because Sterling only played 2 minutes, I'm just going to take him out of this position here to basically put Hutchinson underneath him, just because, well, I don't know how else to put Hutchinson, who came on for Aubameyang, on the field. So then in the end, just to clarify how we played at the very end, Gallagher was in the number 10, Hutchinson was the right wing, and obviously Chukwuemeka remained on the left, Havertz was up top. What do we do well, let's start with Lewis Hall. Yeah, and his only problem is, even though Chelsea want a midfielder, we still have experienced midfielders in Jorginho, Kovacic, when Kante's back, Loftus-Cheek, when Loftus-Cheek's back, with Zakaria obviously now, which is obviously his main position. Left back isn't his best position. He's certainly better at left wing back than at left back. So it's going to be a bit difficult, but in terms of, and I wanted to say something about this earlier. You know how often a lot of fans that watch the youth teams a lot, and I'm not going to name any names in particular, just it applies to most people. Most people told me he's good, but he's not the standout of all the talent that we have. And then I see someone like Hutchinson, of course, did really well against Villa in that game, and it's a tough one for him today, especially for an attacker. It's even tougher than for a left back. But even when I compare it to other youth players that have come through and have gotten a chance, I've very, very rarely seen a Chelsea youth player come through in the first 2 games and look as ready to play in the first team as Lewis Hall has. Physically, like technique-wise, strength-wise, like he's not the biggest guy, but he's no pushover, that kid. Absolutely no pushover. The confidence that to try things, even though like you have to, like even though you're so young, even though there's big pressure, especially in defensive positions, to have the balls like that is crazy. And I mean, EPL 12 only Reece James has done better than Hall, but Reece James had a full championship season loan before that whole thing. Like, and he at times was captain of Wigan. Like he played every game in basically over 46 game season in the championship. So like the fact that Hall's doing it now after coming straight from youth football is so impressive. It's so impressive. Obviously, he had our biggest chance late in the game where he ended up one-on-one with the goalkeeper. I can't remember who played him in. Could he have crossed it? Maybe. Do I understand that he went for goal? Also, yes. Unfortunate that he, in 2 games against Man City, had 3 huge chances and missed all of them, unfortunately. But I still want to give him a 7 as a sub. I honestly, I'm very, very impressed with the kid. And I just hope Potter uses him more as well. I don't know if it's at left back or anywhere. Just find a way to use him. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's make a decision. Are we going to keep Jorginho and Kante? Are we going to keep both? Are we going to keep one of them? If Jorginho is not going to stay, use youngsters instead. Do you know what I mean? If we at all question whether someone like Chilwell will stay long term, use Lewis Hall then. Even when Chilwell's like, to make a decision, you need to make a decision now so that we can at least use this throwaway of a season for a little bit of positive. And giving players like those minutes can play a huge impact in how ready they are to be really helpful in a hopefully much more competitive season next year. But yeah, I was very, very happy with him. Bertram, what about you? What would you give Lewis Hall today?
I think, for the 7 might be skewed. I see you've put an asterisk up against it as well. I thought he was impressive, and I do love Lewis Hall, and I thought he was the one who impressed me the most and gave me the best, sense when we left for the World Cup. And I think he deserves to be played more. Where is this midfielder stuff come from? Isn't he a born and bred left back, or has he also just played?
No. He's a born and bred midfielder. He's a number 8, first and foremost, actually.
He's an 8.
Yeah, and in the friendly against Bournemouth, obviously, not Bournemouth, Aston Villa that we had in Abu Dhabi, he played in the double pivot with. He can play 6 and 8, and he played in the double pivot with Jorginho in that game.
Well, then it's almost even more impressive. But I thought he was good. I thought he also looks very unimpressed when he plays, as most of our youngsters do. And the comment who said almost only Reece James has done better, I maybe if we skew past half of Hudson-Odoi, I'd agree, but I thought he was brilliant. I'd give him a 7 as well. I think Lewis Hall is one for the future, and I hope to see him play more, even if Chilwell does leave. And someone I hope to see, especially playing the Cup on Sunday, might be the last chance we have to play Cup football this season. So great performance from him. I don't really think we can say anything about the shot. In that position, it's the 92nd minute. It was
the only thing I can say is he decided to shoot. So
exactly, which is fair enough. I think it was a decent chance as well, which Chukwuemeka created. So I think a 7 is perfectly fine for a great academy graduate.
Absolutely. And just to clarify for people, he was a sub, lads, 7 ? That's what the asterisk is there for. Like all the subs get an asterisk rating because it's not fully comparable to the players that played the majority of the game. I'm going to put a quote from Graham Potter on Thiago Silva and Koulibaly switching positions today. Not necessarily in the game, I think he's talking about just in general the switch positions compared to the last 2 games. Just his explanation of that. I'm going to highlight it on screen as well, as much as they split it up into 2 comments. Graham Potter on switch to Thiago Silva and Koulibaly position against Man City. We thought Aspie would play a little deeper than Marco Corella, thankfully, because we didn't think that far against Forest, which I thought was an error from Potter. So we didn't want to expose Thiago in terms of down the side, because Thiago's obviously a bit slower than Koulibaly. We tried to put Thiago with whichever side is a bit more defensive. And, it worked out, so can't really complain too much. Clutch, would you agree with the sub rating of 7 for Lewis Hall today?
Yeah, the kid impresses me every time I see him, to be honest. If he's not a left back and he's a natural-born center midfielder, why are we not playing him there? Because if he's getting 7s from us on here, what can he do in his natural position is my question. Also, just for because you didn't go with me for Aubameyang, which is probably a good thing because I won't give him a rating.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. If I say my rating, I'm definitely going to get us all in trouble because I'm going to say a 0 because he's terrible and I don't want him here anymore.
Fair. I mean, if you want to obviously add something to that, please do. But if that's all you're gonna say, just I can put it down to a 1. Absolutely. Anything else you want to add to it, or leave it at that?
No, I'm leaving it at that. You guys said all you needed. All I could say.
Fair dues. All right, who do we move on to next? Next substitute appearance. I guess Conor Gallagher. Better than he was against Forest when he came on. Certainly run and worked his socks off. That's the one big thing he has in him. If only he was technically a tad better and a bit more composed. I think a lack of composure is his biggest issue. He receives the ball and he seems stressed. He seems stressed with having to control the ball and having to decide where he wants to run or where he wants to pass or what he wants to do, while also being aware of his surroundings, of who's around him, what he needs to be careful of, who could steal the ball from him. He just seems to be a little bit overwhelmed with all of those things at once, which is a bit of an issue at this level of football, I'll be perfectly honest. Maybe he can improve that still, but there's very few that have an engine like he do. I mean, how he was sprinting after everyone. He sprinted, was on the ground, and sprinted again. Was on the ground and sprinted again. Just kept sprinting. And not a lot of people, even when you're as someone, you're kind of fresh, not a lot of players do that, But I don't think there was much good. I don't think there was much bad. So as a South, I'm just going to give him a 6. Would you agree with that, Clutch, or would you go for something different?
All right, I was trying to put something in the private chat here. No, 5.5. The thing with Gallagher is he's like Mount, like an unrefined version of Mount. Like the work rate is there. He's clearly that was David Ornstein. And it was off of MC. I can send you the tweet here in a second. But yeah, I think there's so much that Gallagher can be, but he's just not. And it's just I just don't think he's that. Like, he did something. I can't remember exactly what he did, but I was like, how did you ruin that? Like, how do you ruin that? And it's just, he's just been ruining things lately. So I'd give him a 5.5.
Okay. Bachin, what would you give him?
I think for this performance, I'd maybe just give him a 6. But I think the discussion on Connor is interesting, because I saw Dan McCarthy's tweet where he said that, you also need players like, of his caliber, someone who has an engine in him, wants to play for Chelsea, and someone you'd need in a balanced squad, which I agree with. I think in Conor Gallagher has a player like, someone akin to a Rough Diamond, someone who has some very obvious qualities, which we can all see and not a lot of people have, with that engine that he has on him. But he does need to, his technical ability and his overall playing ability when he's playing for a club like Chelsea, in contrast to Palace, needs sharpening up. But I think we need to be patient with him. But for this performance, I'd give him a 6, and I hope to see him improve and be better, because I think we have a real diamond in the rough here.
Okay, fair dues. All right then, keep him. That's the 6. And lastly, Omari Hutchinson making his Chelsea debut, making his Premier League debut. Not the best performance, I'll be honest. Don't take this too it's too critical. It was his first game. He's 18. He's super young. I'm not going to overdo it. Maybe a bit too much pressure, thrown a bit too much in the deep end, as much as I wanted him to start in games. And I think if he got the opportunity to start against the Bournemouth, less pressure, we win that game, or at least comes on with enough time to spare. Even against Forest, I think he should have started. Although therefore they understood it more because Sterling was even half decent or pretty good against Bournemouth. But yeah, I'll give him a 5 as a sub. I'm not going to go lower than that. He didn't do that much wrong other than the one really bad cross. But he's a fast player. He's a dribbler that can shoot as well. Like we saw that in the friendly against Aston Villa. And he just didn't. He was too hesitant. Every time he could have taken someone on, he turned around, passed it back, which sometimes is okay. I'm not saying you have to take someone on every time. That would be unreasonable and unlikely and stupid. But he had moments where he could have done, like we were 1-0 down in the last few minutes. And that's the only thing that annoyed me about our team today. Like we were 1-0 down. We were in injury time and we were passing around the back. I'm like, just try to score in any way you can. If we concede another one, it does not matter. Like, it doesn't matter at all. Just get up the pitch and see if we can get an equalizer. And I don't understand why we didn't do that. Like, we held a whole shape. No one pushed up. You don't need set pieces for that. Like, when Real Madrid are losing, Sergio Ramos was their first one in the opposition box. Like, that's what Van Dijk, when Liverpool are losing, is the first one in the opposition box. You just put Koulibaly up there and see what you can do. I don't understand why we didn't do it. I know it's City and they're good and stuff, but what do we have to lose? We're 1-0 down. It's the last few minutes. Risk it. There's nothing to do with Hutchinson directly. But I still feel like the fact that he didn't take players on just, portrayed the whole team in the sense that at the end we didn't really throw the kitchen sink at it when we had nothing to lose, which I just don't really understand. And I think that should come more from the manager, but we'll get to that later. Clutch, 5 for Hutchinson. Is that reasonable for you, or would you go potentially even lower than that?
No, I'd give him a 5, which sounds boring because it just sounds like I'm agreeing, but I feel like that's just a fair assessment. Yeah, it's disappointing, but this is also why I didn't really want the people who are like, why didn't you just start him? That's why you don't start him. I mean, it's City at the end of the day.
I mean, it might have been better if you started. Who knows? You never know.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more nerves that come into it. I don't think it's not the ability that's missing there. It's the nervousness from a young 19-year-old kid who's coming on against Manchester City. And of course, and it's your debut game. So this is where a couple games ago, he should have got a couple minutes here or there. Maybe give him a longer run out, maybe start him in the cup. I don't know. Maybe you kind of get that.
I think you should start in the cup.
Yeah, so I guess we'll see on Sunday how it all goes. But yeah, no, I'd give him a 5, and I don't want to be too harsh on the guy.
Fair dues. Oh, I forgot to get the comment off the screen. Basham, would you agree with the 5 for Hutchinson?
Yeah, I think I would. I don't know what I was expecting. I think I was expecting the reincarnation of Messi, seeing the clips from the academy. You'd have to temper your expectations, if we're honest. But for a 19-year-old to come on and debut against Man City, I thought he was reasonable. I thought he didn't fall through, and I think I just pretty much agree with what you've said. I hope to see him get more opportunities, but to me, I don't think he looked, especially for the type of player he is, as someone who was as ready to take this step as, for example, Lewis Hall was, or some of the other academy players we played, which is fair enough. You can't expect someone to.
Well, that's what happens. He got taught at the academy of Arsenal, not at Chelsea. We only got him in the summer. So sometimes to learn how to do things properly. I know Arsenal are good right now, but I'm still taking the dig. Do you know what I mean? Deal with it.
But those are my thoughts on him. Hope to see him more because I think we have someone in net. It's always funny having someone who's gone from Arsenal to come to, it's in the name, the pride of London. So hope to see him more, but fine for Hutchinson.
Best and no, Supreme. I disagree on every single word that you said there. Responsible for the goal was Kepa. Got cooked in the left and right. Absolutely didn't. Misplaced passes in our own half. Did because he was the only one trying to beat the press other than Kovacic. And I completely disagree. Cucurella was good, in my opinion, not poor. And if he couldn't have done a little bit better for the goal, he would have even gotten a higher rating. All right, lastly, let's put him with Zakaria, just for, positive manifestation in that. With the man of the match on our end, Graham Potter. What are we going to do with him today? I do, like I say, the whole character and just enthusiasm, attitude, mentality. I do think that is the fact that we didn't even try at the end today. Even under Conte in that one most dreadful game of all time I've ever seen, the 1-0 away at the Etihad, where we didn't do anything for 93 minutes. Even in that game, we tried at the very, very end. Today, we didn't. We had our moments in the normal game, much more than in that one Conte game. But I don't understand why you wouldn't throw the kitchen sink out there at the end. Again, but what you have to lose. Who gives a shit if we concede one more goal? What difference does that make? Just try to get an equalizer. Do you know what I mean? A point, not losing today, could have been a big thing for us in terms of, giving us a bit of confidence, a bit of, just a bit of a good feel boost at the club, which I'm sure the club and, could do with nowadays. And I do think that comes a little bit from the manager, but I think in general, how he set us up today, how we dealt with Man City, how we knew exactly how to stop Man City. They don't want to overload the wings. So therefore, we overloaded the center and they just still didn't use the wings. And therefore, we kept them very quiet for the most part. Obviously, in the second half, they started using the wings a little bit more. That's why they created a few more chances. And that's in the end how they scored. One cross was on the left, Kepa didn't get there. It's a goal. They could have had the other one with Haaland later, where Kepa maybe could have come for that as well, but that one was a little bit further away from him at least. Still not as far away as the one he claimed in the first half, which, again, I just find weird. As if he lost some confidence as the game went on. It was strange. But yeah, I don't have too much to complain about Potter. You can't really argue the subs. Last game we complained, if we're not going to do well, at least use some of the youngsters. He did today. Can't complain too much of the subs. They still came reasonably early. Early in the 70 minutes, even though we only had that session phase for substitutes left. So I'm going to give Potter a 7. Is that too high, Clutch? Is that fair? I mean, some people in the chat said 8, a few said 7, so maybe you're not too far off, but it was only a couple of people, so maybe the larger majority still disagree. He did put Aspie above Chalobah, but today I can't say it failed so hard that I'm going to criticize that so badly.
Yeah, and I think his reasoning is you're still going to put the captain out there.
Yeah,
as much as he should.
You don't have a single centre-back on the bench is also an issue.
Yeah, and that's the problem is again, I'll say this. When Badashil comes in and is actually training and he finds himself on the bench or starting, which I don't think he'll be starting anytime soon, but you'll probably see Trevor Chalobah a lot more. And that's where it's okay, I understand why Potter's doing what Potter's doing. I'd give him a 7. That's what I was in between my 7 and 7.5. I'm going to go 7 because you really can't fault too much.
Yeah, people are asking in the chat, what could he have done better? And to be honest, probably not much. Maybe not bring Aubameyang on. I mean, obviously in the end, Pulisic got injured anyway. But when you see how Aubameyang played and how Chukwuemeka played, the fact that he decided to bring Aubameyang on and not Chukwuemeka when Sterling got injured, I guess you could count that as a wrong thing. He just
probably changed his mind.
That the other guy got injured as well, so he also got the chance to bring Chukwuemeka on early, I guess. But yeah,
to be honest, he's probably not going to be doing that anymore because Chukwuemeka just proved that he should be playing over Aubameyang now. So we probably won't see Aubameyang very much anymore. So
yeah, I mean, he got hooked off after being subbed on. So Aubameyang is not going to be. I mean, he also looked fuming.
But again, somebody saying an 8 is a high for a losing team, sure, but again,
did you even say 8? You didn't.
No, I think he's talking about people. I'm not saying 8. I'm saying 7. And
I think also I agree with that though. I think 7 is about the highest I'm willing to go for the manager when you lose, and
I don't think you can do much more.
Very good team will I do that. Do you know what I mean?
And I also think we set up very well. We set up to disrupt them and made Pep have to change. So,
fair. Bacham, would you agree with the 7? Would you go for something different? What do you think?
I agree with what you're saying. Most of I would give him a 7.5 to be honest. I think the feeling we were coming into the game with, the way he executed the game plan, I think warrants a 7.5. I think the players he brought in and the system we played, pressing high to start with, which I was happy to see, and also having the trust to bring these players on, even though he didn't, let's be honest, he doesn't have much choice. But alas, around 6 to 8 minutes, he did bring them on. So I'd personally give him a 7.5. I think he coached us to the best of his ability and ended up being beat out by our goalkeeper not completely fulfilling his role. So I think I subscribe to the thought that he couldn't really have done much different in this. And I agree that it would be high for a losing team. But I think I would reward him personally with the 7.5. But no, I wouldn't be up in arms with the 7 rating, which is on now.
Fair. That's okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I do quickly want to talk about the whole Enzo Fernandez situation. So if you're still here, please do subscribe. That'd be massively appreciated. Smash the like button as well. That'd be wonderful. But I think before we have a very last roundout about this game, we need to quickly talk about this. Also, let me just quickly bring up this new piece of information by David Ornstein. He says Chelsea have entered their $105 million, whatever that is in pounds, 88 million or whatever, race for Mikhailo Mudryk. I'm not sure if it's pronounced Mikhailo, but that's how I'm going to go with it. Alongside Arsenal, Arsenal could bring in João Felix on loan. As things stand, Enzo Fernandez is not joining Chelsea. Let's focus first on Enzo Fernandez. I mean, we don't know for 1,000,000% if what we've learned today is the full and God's honest truth, and yesterday is the full and God's honest truth. It is obviously going to be a slightly sided. No love for your post. What post he's put?
He's talking about I think he, there was the one a little bit earlier where he was saying what was going to happen. He said, I'm calling it now. Chelsea 1-0, versus City on Sunday. VAR to approve Mason's one-time pass via crutch to Sterling's wheelchair. Sterling's back wheel pass to CP to score with his right leg. That it was a prosthetic.
Okay. So T-Spot, you got, it read out. I'm not sure how much love I'm going to give it, but hey, you're trying. Well done. Yeah. So I do think we are fed a mostly Benfica side of this whole story. But the fact that we wasted a week or spent a week negotiating, apparently verbally telling them that we're going to pay the release clause or more than the release clause because we don't want to pay the release clause in one go for financial fair play. And, we want installments. And apparently they, in the end, kind of fudged to that. But then we actually come with an offer and it's 85 million euros. With apparently Ziyech and two loanies. I was on Charlie's channel 4 stream in the afternoon before the game. And I asked the question there already. Excuse me, but did anyone even ask Ziyech if he wants to go to Benfica? Because this just seems insane. And I don't know if it's just Red Bull doing their thing and just trying to ruin my life as much as they can now that this flipping Vivel is here. And we turn up with a flipping 85 million euro offer. I cannot understand the stupidity of this. Like, if you're not willing to spend the money, that's okay. But then don't spend a week trying. Like, if they tell you this is how much we want, and then you apparently tell them you're going to pay around this much, but then you don't, Benfica have every right to be pissed off at us. Every right. Like, this is a club that we used to have a really good relationship with. We've signed loads of players over the years from Benfica. And not in maybe a little while, but in the grand scheme of things, loads of players. We had a good relationship with these people. Benfica's manager worked at RB Salzburg, like Christopher Vivel, our sport director that's in charge of these things. Not at the same time. Vivel joined Salzburg a few months after Roger Schmidt left. But still, how can we screw this up so much? And now we go for Mudryk. Why? I just don't understand any of this. And it really, really triggers me. Like, again, maybe Mudryk is better than I'm aware of. But I said this again on Charlie's channel today. I don't like it when we turn up to signings like last minute, because it just never seems planned. And number one, that never has gone well for us. And number two, I thought we were going to change as a club now. That's what we were promised. Like, we're going to be data-driven and analysis-driven, and we're going to do some proper scouting and not going to just sign random players. And now that Mudryk is on the verge of signing for Arsenal, we're like, we're going to get involved. After you just bottled signing Enzo Fernandez. And then you sign Benoit Badiashile, who I'm not even displeased with. Seems like a good player. But we still have Levi Colwill. So if we just didn't make this, and I'm sure if we just paid Bruyne a bit of money, we could have recalled him if we really wanted to. Like, I'm sure we could have done. And then if you add the 38 million, even though we're going to split it up for the 7.5-year contract, in theory, if you're going to just add that to the 85 million, you're on the release clause for Enzo. He would just be so much better for our team than Badiashile and Mudryk tripled over and combined. Like, I just don't understand what we're doing. Like, I'm honestly really disappointed in this. Like, I'd never expected Bowley and Iqbali and all of these guys to be football experts from day one, or even from year one. But I expected them to be business experts, and this kind of negotiation just makes us look like right amateurs, and I hate it. I despise it. Like, we were a force under Roman Abramovich. It's no one's fault other than Vladimir Putin's. The fact that Roman Abramovich isn't around anymore is what it is. We can't change that. But I expected more in this sense. I'm not saying Bowley will always be like this and Vivel will always be like this, but whatever they pulled off here, unless Benfica have somehow managed to feed us all lies, I think we've had a huge, huge stinker. Because, again, we need a right back. I don't care who it is, but we need a right back. And we spent a week for nothing. Nothing. I just don't understand it. I just don't understand it. And maybe if I watch Mudryk more, I would be much more excited about the situation. But how can I couldn't, he's only 21. How could I have watched him more? The Ukrainian league wasn't going until a few months ago because, well, another country fucking invaded them. So when did he have this whole break? Like, he had a good half season. Well, Enzo, I guess, is not too different, but at least he had good enough of a career in Argentina to be picked up by Benfica, which is how all of these talented South Americans make it to Europe, most of them anyway, through Portugal. So I don't get it. Bertram, I'm looking at your face, obviously. Sorry, Clutch, always swayed by someone who has the camera on. What's your thoughts on all of this? Like, again, maybe we're slightly fed a bit of a lie and it's not the full truth. But how it is, to me, it really triggers me. I cannot even lie to you.
Well, I have in general been really impressed with our ownership. The people we've gotten in and the data-driven approach we should have taken. But the thing that annoys me most from this is the clown-like negotiating that it seems like we've done. Turned up, trying to play Football Manager, trying to trade players all over the place, not pay the full release clause. This is the thing that annoys me because I just think it isn't good karma if you show up to a club. I think that rumor would spread throughout the football world that we're not good to negotiate with. So naturally, clubs, when trying to sell to us or buy from us, will have a natural distaste, which doesn't sit well with me. In terms of signing Enzo Fernandez, I was always a bit skeptical about paying the full release clause for a player that has only had a good 6 months, and it's been a really good 6 months. Don't get me wrong, but I think we need to spend that money that we would have spent there addressing different parts of the squad. Like you've said, a right back. I still think a midfielder is a brilliant idea for the winter window, a fantastic idea, and Enzo Fernandez would be a great signing. But for that amount of money, I think we should get someone else. And I hope the ownership structure proved me wrong, because I think a signing like David Datro, a signing like Andre Santos and Badiashile, all great signings.
But even Andre Santos, it looks like we can't even figure out his work permit situation, and we're going to have to loan it back to Vasco da Gama anyway.
And that's also a bit, of a tough situation to be in. Exactly. And this is what's disappointing me the most, because the only thing that's keeping me going right now is having the owners and the confidence they've instilled in me through their appointments are going through. Because if I begin to believe that the owners are terrible, well, then it's not just this season we're in a right mess. Then we're in a right mess until we get sold again. And that's just
2032.
an unbearable amount of time. So let's hope that story is just something from Benfica. Let's hope we sign someone, and let's hope we win everything. But I just see to it that we get a right back, because as good as he is, he can't even bear to play the amount of games that we're asking him to. And it's not out of the question that Reece James maybe gets injured again, or maybe gets a red card, or maybe we play something different. So for my money, we just a bit of a smaller window where we just make small signings, but fill the holes in our squad, because today was the first day where I thought, this season it might be in a bit of a rot. So maybe just compare it and wait until the summer.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one. I think Josh makes an important comment here, saying, I like how people think Caicedo and McAllister will be well priced. Cucurella was, 62 million, including add-ons, so 55 million. Negotiating with Brighton now is dangerous. And that's what I think as well, because Caicedo is a Premier League proven player. McAllister literally signed a new contract just before the World Cup, just won the World Cup, and just had his breakout thing happen. Do people think we're going to get these guys for less than 60, 70, 80 million? Why would Brighton do that? If anything, they don't like us anymore, because we literally bought their whole club. People sit here, I understand what you're saying, Bertram, in terms of it was expensive. There was a really understandable amount of skepticism there, absolutely. But the problem is the options are worse and not that much cheaper. So I'm like, when I compare how highly do I rate Enzo Fernandez and any of the Brighton guys, and Caicedo, to me, it doesn't even fix anything. Because yes, he is a workhorse and a tackle machine like Kante, and he can carry the ball. But then still that doesn't fix our creativity midfield issue. And then still we will probably play in with Jorginho or Kovacic and have the identical issues we've had anyway. And I was already critical of Kante, at least with the way we used him under Thomas Tuchel, because we had Jorginho there mostly sitting, Kante being the more offensive midfielder, but then he's just not creative. So we then therefore had no creativity from the deep areas in midfield. And if we sign someone like Caicedo, the same problem will still be there. Now, McAllister is certainly a little bit more creative, in my opinion, than Caicedo. But again, I don't watch Brighton all the time, so this could also be a little bit wrong. But I feel like depending on how much these guys are going to cost, they're not any less and more worth that than Enzo Fernandez would have been 120. That's my opinion. And I see someone say deals collapse all the time. That's true. That's a good point, Jacob. But it's more about the way it collapsed and how it collapsed and why it collapsed, rather than the fact that it collapsed. That's annoying me personally. But Clutch, what's your perspective on the whole situation, man?
Obviously, you guys know kind of what I've been saying in the group chat, so I'll repeat that. Obviously, I think Enzo's profile is something we do need, along with like a Rice or something. I've said that multiple times, but it's that amount that keeps coming up, and I keep saying like, if you're not willing to pay the 120 million now, where I do agree is if you're not willing to do that, the conversation should have never been had. And Benfica clearly don't want to lose Enzo Fernandez for any amount of money, like unless they're being forced to contractually because we paid the price. I think that's just where that lack of insight came in, where they were like, well, we can probably get this guy for a lot less than 120 million, as long as like all the situations correct. Enzo says, hey, I want to push this move, all these things. We just were never expecting Benfica to be so stubborn with the negotiations. But that's the point. They had no reason to sell. Sure, Enzo's going to be a little bit upset, but it's not like he's not going to get a big
Now
money
he's going
move
to
at
be
some
more
point.
at us than them anyway. So
yeah, and I think it's just all one big cluster, you know what? But I think it's just, for me, like, again, as you said, Cancedo's just not a player that like you're paying what would end up being 60 million for him, 70 million. Does he really fit what we need? No. And I think there's a lot of problems. And that's why when I was told like, hey, we're going to spend 100 million on this guy, I'm like, well, I mean, we still have a lot of other positions I think we need to kind of address as well. And like the whole physical DM thing, maybe Zakaria now is changing that opinion a little bit. But do I actually think Zakaria in long term will be good enough? I guess we'll see at the end of the season. But yeah, it's just for me, it's like I did actually push myself into actually wanting Enzo at some point because I'm like, okay, I can get behind this guy. But I also like it never left my brain to be like 120 mil when we need a lot of things right now. That's a little worrying. And then now that we're like trying to hijack Mudryk, it's like, okay, maybe he's a good player. Maybe he is. But again, Sterling and Pulisic getting injured for an indefinite amount of time because we don't know yet. It seems like, okay, sure, fair enough. But when those two guys are back, do I really think Mudryk's better than either of those two? Maybe Sterling based on form now, but if Sterling picks up form,
William back from Fulham will probably work out better than any of these signings.
Probably, considering he's like fifth on the most chances created in the Premier League this year. But hey,
yeah, you know,
but Mudryk is a bit of a luxury signing as well.
Sorry.
Mudryk is a bit of a luxury signing as well for like 100 million. You know, he could be good. He could also not be good.
Exactly.
I don't think we can afford him to not be good. Arsenal can afford it a bit more, you know, when they're flying, and you know they can afford.
But especially
because they have Martinelli on one side who's scoring.
João Felix on loan. Like I know the whole João Felix on loan thing is like expensive and everything, but so is fucking Mudryk. Like, you know, yeah, João Felix is expensive, and obviously if it's an obligation and it's different, then I still don't want João Felix. But if there's any sort of option involved, how is like I know 6 months they want a lot of money, but my God, I haven't seen enough of him, but it just seems like Arsenal wants him. Oh, maybe we should as well. It just seems like one of those, and I really dislike it. Also, like he clearly wants to go to Arsenal. I don't want the player that clearly wants to go to Arsenal. Also, if he theoretically, no, I guess it would never be him that picked us. It would be Shakhtar selling to us because we bid more than Arsenal. Otherwise, we would never win. But even from his perspective, why would you ever come to us now over Arsenal? Like, why would you do that? You would be an idiot. Like, so if he would even do that, it would be insane. Like, how can I respect you for your, ambition in life if you come to us over Arsenal right now? I'm like, I'll be honest. Like, you have to say it that way. I wonder how much was, I'm not going to try to pronounce his name, but the Georgian guy from Napoli. Not a lot, but, we didn't, where did he play before? I forget, but maybe we should find someone like that. But okay. I think we're gonna round this one out. Long day. It's just, hey, at least we go again on Sunday. Not too long to wait. Maybe City rotate a bit more. Maybe we have a better chance then. I doubt it, because we will probably also rotate, considering we already took Cucurella off today, clearly for rotational purposes, I think, because we don't have a backup to him with Chilwell being injured, other than Lewis Hall, obviously. So yeah, let's see how Sunday goes. We move on. It's a tough time at the moment. Let's get past these City games. Let's get some players back fit. We have 10 players injured. They're like 10 players injured. The first thing we need to do is sod Mudryk, sod Enzo. can you please fix our medical team? We released the head of medical department in September, and as far as the public is aware, haven't replaced them. Can we start with that, please? I'm not obviously Pulisic injury has nothing to do with the medical staff today. Sterling potentially overplayed, but he could just be unlucky. You know, Sterling, Fofana, you could argue similar things, but the fact that two people had knee injuries, they play in games and they re-injured the same injury, doesn't sound good now, does it? So, you know, maybe we need to do something about these things. But hey, ladies and gentlemen, appreciate you very much so if you're still here, nearly going for 2 hours, which, especially on these late kickoff games, is always a screw up for, especially myself, but even more so guests like Bertrand who live in my time zone. So I do apologize for keeping it so late. Please do check out my wonderful guests down in the description below. I think their Twitters. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're on the road to 20,000 subscribers. It'd be massively appreciated. If you could subscribe, smash the like button on your way out. It really helps me spread these streams and videos out to more people. That's how content creators grow. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, upwards and onwards. That's all we can say. We move, and I'll see you next time.